What is up, people? We are back. Let me just make sure my mic is on. It is. Alright. We're back with some more 2015 Heart of the Swarm lower league tips. And today we're going to look at something that a lot of lower league players attempt to do, because in theory it's a great idea, but a lot of times they don't pull it off, and that is the Dark Templar Rush. If you don't know what those are, the Dark Templars are the little Protoss units that they carry like the weird green double scythe things, and they're always invisible unless you have detection, which makes them a real pain in the balls if done correctly. Now, I'm going to say right now, I'm not going to focus on the build order or anything like that, because there's a million other things in the internet, different things that will cover that tactic or that attribute of a Dark Templar Rush. Today I want to talk about the other parts of the Dark Templar Rush that need to be done correctly in order for a Dark Templar Rush to actually work. Now, a lot of people get aggravated in the lower leagues because they're like, hey, I'm doing the build right, why am I not winning as much as I would hope to? And that's usually because there's something else wrong. So we're going to look at a video, and we're going to look at it from my perspective. I think in this game I ended up playing, I think this guy was a barcode guy, which means nothing to me. He was either gold or platinum, I think. But either way, it's Protoss versus Protoss, and whenever I play Protoss versus Protoss, I always tend to start with the Dark Templar Rush. And, like I said, we're not going to focus as much on the build order. We're going to focus on the other aspects of the game that you need to be able to do in order to make sure the Dark Templar Rush is effective. And again, this is probably only going to be effective for Bronze and Silver League players. Even some Gold Leaguers, I guess, but in the higher leagues, most people will already know most of this stuff. But there's a lot of stuff when I watch Dark Templar build order videos that they kind of leave out, and I think it's because they expect you to already know it, and I've always tried to make it a goal to break down the very basic things. So let's get right to it. So we're not going to focus on the build too much, because like I said, there's a million different videos you can watch that will tell you that. We're going to play from my perspective, so we're not going to really see what he's doing until we get there. So a Dark Templar Rush obviously seems kind of risky to a lot of people, for a couple of reasons. One, it's very considered all-in-ish, even though it doesn't have to be. A lot of people think it's an all-in if their Dark Templar Rush fails. They think that it's done and they can't win, and that's not true. A Dark Templar Rush can actually transition really well into an expansion or something of that sort, as long as you're doing it correctly and you make sure to try to do enough damage with your Dark Templar, because no matter what, even if you don't end the game with the Dark Templar Rush, you should always do some significant damage. So, while we're talking, we see their base, and we see they have 9 pylon, 12 gateway. They don't have either their gases yet, so this is a pretty standard build. Usually you want to scout after the pylon or after the gateway. I tend to try to scout after the gateway, unless it's a map where there's 4 starting locations, which I don't think this is one of those maps. So when there's 4 starting locations, I'll tend to scout on a pylon. Otherwise, or if it's Terran, because they'll wall off quickly. Otherwise, or Zerg. Against Protoss, though, I generally scout on the gateway, and we notice they're not doing anything too odd. They have their gateway, which is about as far along as ours is, so it's not. They didn't go for a 10 gate or anything like that. They don't have gases yet. And obviously they probably wouldn't have gases yet anyway, because they aren't that far along in the game. But we're seeing that they're not doing anything too cheesy. Their gateway's not almost finished. Their pylon count, their worker count isn't like ridiculously low. So we know that, for now, he chrono boosted his Nexus, so we know he's doing economy, not an early rush to an extent. So we get our double gases, because that's what we do. Now, something I will know, as you see here, his scout got in, and of course I tried to surround it with my workers. It didn't work. I got a little carried away here with the micromanagement. But one thing that a lot of people do is they freak out the minute they get scouted for a DT rush. They're like, oh no, they scouted our DT rush, we're done. And you need to relax. I mean, double gas could be anything. He knows we're going to tech to something. That much is obvious. The fact that what it could be is a totally different story. I could just be trying to get like heavy sentry or really any sort of tech quickly. Now, you always want to make sure when you're doing a DT rush to get another pylon near their base. Now, I did make the mistake. This is my second pylon. I only have one pylon in my base. If a player is really good, they're going to realize you only have one pylon, and they're going to wonder where that second pylon is. Now, I don't think this guy had that capability. He does end up walking by it at some point and seeing it, but I don't think he thought to himself, where's his second pylon? Because in the lower leagues, people don't tend to notice that stuff. So anyway, we got our gateway. We're putting down our cyber core. We're going to try to get rid of his scout. His scout's going to come in one more time in a little bit. We're just going to keep getting our workers. And as you see, he comes in one more time, but he doesn't see anything out of the ordinary. He just sees his double gas. Okay, he's got a cyber core. It's nothing. So he knows I'm teching up to some extent. That's pretty obvious. My worker's going to chase him eventually, but eventually I'm just going to kind of leave him alone. Now this is where it gets unfortunate, is he is going to run down and he is going to scout this pylon because of the path he took to get back to his territory. You'll see that he notices it and he starts attacking the worker. Now, unfortunately, he does leave the worker alive, but he's going to get that pylon. And this ends up screwing me over a little bit because I'm going to end up getting supply capped here because I don't have enough pylons. Now, you know, I'm going to fix it very quickly, but try to, if you're going to put a proxy pylon down, you should probably have it be your third or fourth pylon, not one of your first two. I have a zealot out because we are getting to the point where the DT rush is going to become more obvious. We have the Twilight Council down. That doesn't totally mean it's a DT rush in his mind. It could be Blink Stalkers, could be a really heavy chargelet thing. Of course, at this point now, if he comes in and clicks on this Dark Shrine, he's going to know what it is. And I could have put it back here, but I wasn't going to take the time to put down another pylon. Usually, if I put my second pylon in my base, it's going to be back here to try to hide the Dark Shrine. But since I put it somewhere else, I'm not going to waste time. I'm not going to lose seconds or minutes on my clock just for that. I have two zealots here that will cover any scouting issues. So we're getting out a stalker. A stalker's not necessary, but if he tries to come in with a mothership core, it'll at least slow it down to some extent. Gateway research is finishing. We're going to start getting down our 3 gateways now. I ended up, the way I played this game, because theoretically, when you do this build perfectly, your Dark Shrine, your 4 gates, and your gateway should all be done pretty much simultaneously. I could have done that, yes. I did get kind of distracted by this pylon, but the big thing is I wanted to kind of shake the build a little bit, because another big concern with lower league players is that if their build gets fucked up at all, that they're totally screwed and they're not going to win the game. And so I purposely kind of offset everything coming together at the right time, because I wanted to show you that just because your build gets offset doesn't mean that shit's going to hit the fan, you're going to automatically lose. You just have to adjust how you're going to play the game. So in this game I purposely kind of, oh shit, I don't have enough minerals the entire time. I got 2 gateways, get my third one, go back to mining. So this is just an example of how your build can get offset. I did this just to kind of help with that. Now obviously the Dark Shrine and Warp Gate are done, but I only have 1 gate. Now, in a moment like this, like I said, I obviously waited on my Dark Templar Rush. It should have been done earlier than this. But for a standard Bronze or Silver League player, this timing wouldn't be terrible. So I need to make a decision. Do I wait for my 4 gates, or do I or do I just go in with 2? And I'm going to opt to go in with just the 2 gates first, because I need to make sure I get in there before his detections get up. So we're going to opt, we had our pylon down here, we're going to warp in our 2 DTs, and we're going to go in. And the first thing we're going to notice as we go up is this. Our Dark Templars aren't being attacked, which means he doesn't have an observer over his army yet. Which doesn't mean he has an observer at all, honestly. If he does have an observer, it's only just coming on its way. And here's how I know that. If there was an observer over my base, he would have seen that Dark Shrine. If he had seen that Dark Shrine, he would have pumped out another observer and put it with his army. The fact that he hasn't done that means that he doesn't have an observer to our base yet, so it just must have come out on the best day. So we're going to ignore his army, we're going to ignore his expansion, because... And this is a big thing, guys. This is a big thing. Most people are like, oh, DT Rush, hit that mineral line, kill their workers. That is bad. The first priority target in a DT Rush is any form of detection. For Protoss, that's robotics facilities, and that's photon cannons. Now, we're going to come in here, we're going to go into the buildings, and we're going to see this. In the corner here is his robotics facility, which immediately alerts us to the fact that he hasn't got any detection now. He's got a forge, so he can build photon cannons, but even if we, and this is another little thing that most people don't know, just because you power down the forge, if you kill the pylons, he can still build photon cannons because the structure still exists. So just because the forge isn't powered doesn't mean that photon cannons can't be built, as we will see later. But this is my primary target. An observer will be a big pain in the ass if he gets one out. But we're not going to try to focus the building because that's not going to do us too much good. We need to shut down these pylons because that's going to not only cut off his robotics facility, but it's going to shut down his gateways as well. So we're going to go in, we're going to come around to this back pylon, and we're going to start shutting it down. Now at this point he's going to notice that something's going on. We're going to get this second pylon, and we're going to get it before the robotics facility can even hope to finish. We're warping in more DTs now, and honestly, 4 or 5 DTs is all, you know, sometimes I'll opt for 6 or 7, but this is really the only amount of DTs you'll need for a DT rush. Any more than this and you're kind of being a bit ridiculous, you might need to warp in more at your base, but, you know, 4 or 5 should clear out anything if they don't have detection. So, we're sending in these DTs now. We see that his army, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. We see the photon cannon coming down. He's trying to get it down for detection, and that's immediately going to become our primary target. Now all of our DTs are down here. We're going to start killing off workers. And at this point, at this stage in the game, the player you're against, you will see here, is going to make one of 2 decisions. He's either gonna quit, because a lot of people in lower leagues will quit. He could play really smart and defend it, but at a lower league you won't see that as much. Or he's going to do what this guy did, and he's going to try to all in. And remember, this is a gold platinum league player, I think. So he was one of the 2. So if he's going to try to go all in because he's freaking out, then any silver or bronze league player will probably do the same thing. So we're going to have our DTs follow him across the map. And obviously, we see that he's going to come all in. So we're going to, you know, we have our pylon here. We're going to warp in a DT because we know he doesn't have detection, and a DT will clean out anything he's doing. And we know he's going to try to rush up our ramp. So we're going to kind of build, a wall in to kind of slow it down. Now obviously, our wall in's not going to be done right. But we're just doing this as an attempt to slow him down. This isn't meant to actually succeed in anything. We've already won the game at this point. If we hold this all in, then he's done because he doesn't have detection up yet. So wasting these minerals isn't a huge deal. A lot of his workers, we already know, aren't mining, so we're still, all these minerals we're wasting are easily going to be re-farmed. So this is just cannon fodder at the moment. It's going to slow him down so we can get a couple more DTs on the battlefield. He did decide to turn his workers around, which was kind of an iffy decision, because now he's going to be even further behind, and our Dark Templar are going to follow them back and make sure to finish that off. But, you know, we're going to kind of let him do his thing here, see how far he gets. Our main focus needs to be to make sure to finish off this. We're going to split our DTs at this point. We're going to have a couple go for this expansion. We're going to have a couple come up here. As you can see, even though his forge still isn't powered, he does have a photon cannon on his mineral line now, which means he did build it with the forge depowered. But that photon cannon, for 3 Dark Templars, 1 photon cannon is easily going to be taken down. And then we're just going to start destroying his workers. And at this point, he can't warp in more units. He can try to warp in more detection, but it's going to take time. His workers will all be dead by then. So now our focus is going to shift up here. He's obviously gotten his stalkers up here. We have our 1 DT, and he's going to start destroying our probes. But again, he doesn't have that detection that he needs to win this game. So we're going to warp in these DTs, and yeah, he did some damage because our focus was down here, but this is nothing compared to the damage we have currently done to him. Almost all his workers are getting killed. He doesn't have any pylons up. He doesn't even have he has a little bit of mineral left to build some stuff. But we're gonna clean it up. And, you know, of course, a lot of people also say, oh, well, there's a mothership core. Our Dark Templars are land units. We can't attack a mothership core. What do we do? Well, funny thing is, Dark Templar turned into this nifty thing called an Archon that can immensely annihilate a mothership core. And you will see that we will indeed turn it into an Archon, but before we even get it turned into it, he's gonna GG. He's gonna be pissy because we did the Dark Templar Rush, and there's the Archon going down, and then the game ends before the Archon can get out. So as you can see, even in Gold and Platinum League, Dark Templar Rushes can be immensely effective as long as you do things right. And this is a Gold and Platinum game, and I even purposely kind of slowed down my build just to kind of emulate a Bronze or Silver or Gold League player. Now, like I said, I'm not going over the build order. You guys can definitely find that somewhere else. I don't want to be that cliche guy who does build orders unless it's necessary. But these are the main things you got to remember when you're doing the DT rush. A, scout early. Scout at your pylon or your gateway, because you want to make sure that if they're doing cheese, or not even cheese, but any type of really aggressive early thing like a cannon rush or a double gate zealot push, you need to be able to adjust and adapt. Second thing, if your build gets thrown off, if you're slow, if something goes wrong, don't freak the fuck out. Thirdly, if they scout, don't freak the fuck out. Just because they see double gas doesn't mean they're going to know anything. Even just because they see a Twilight Council doesn't mean they're going to do anything. Little known fact is that most Bronze and Silver League players, when they scout, they're just scouting because they're supposed to be scouting, and they're looking for very obvious things. But a lot of the time, they won't catch those little details unless it's obvious. Now, obviously, if they see a Dark Shrine, they know DTs are coming. But if they see a Twilight Council, though that could be one of the things on their mind, they're probably gonna think. They could also say, okay, it could be Blink Stalkers, could be double Zealot push or a Chargelet push. It could be quick upgrades with a Forge. They're not going to look into it as deeply in the lower leagues. Now, the Dark Shrine you probably should have put back here. That's not a terrible idea. The next thing is just, third or fourth pylon. Make sure you have a couple of pylons placed around so that if they kill one, another one can be used for a warp in. And one of the biggest things is, like I said, get rid of that detection. Shut down that robotics facility. Shut down any cannons they have. And if they don't have detection, it's done. And the last thing, and this is something we didn't really go over in this video, is that if your DT rush fails, you can't freak out. If they have detection or whatever, say they already have their observers up, say your DT rush is just a little too late, you forget to shut down the robotics facility. Just because the Dark Templar Rush doesn't work doesn't mean you're screwed by any means. A cannon rush, something really, really early, yeah, you're gonna have to come back a little bit, but with this you really don't have to. I mean, obviously he was on 2 bases whereas we were on 1. But even if they have a couple of observers, you can still do a significant amount of damage with a couple of DTs as long as you know what you're doing. If you don't think you can do that damage, pull your DTs back, build a couple of Archons, or try to just push with a couple of Archons, because the likelihood is, if you get your DT rush down, you can probably get DTs at 6 minutes 30 seconds. That's my best guesstimate. It could be wrong. But at that point in time, they're not going to have a huge army if they expanded and are trying to work on their economy too. They're going to have, they could have some Zealot, Stalker, Sentry mix. They might have an Immortal. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll have an Immortal. Could be getting their Observer. But if you warp in 4 DTs, you should be able to do some hefty damage. If not, you can always try to turn them into 2 Archons and fight, go around, move some DTs to different areas so their Observers can't keep up. And if you don't think your DT rush is going to work, they're just going to get slaughtered, pull them back to your base, turn them into Archons, keep them as DTs, whatever, and just play as normal. And now you have DTs to throw into your build, and that automatically means they have to spend time building a lot of Observers, and that's going to slow them down a bit. So a DT is a nice thing. You can go DT expand, anything like that. It's a nice, solid build against Protoss to kind of mess around with and really adapt to. Even if I don't, I almost always start Protoss games with a DT attack of some sort, because it's a solid harass that can lead into a decent transition as long as you get your build down good. But other than that, I think that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Obviously, this isn't like wicked pro tips. If you're in Platinum, Diamond League, Masters League, you'll probably know most of this shit. Maybe you'll pick up something you didn't know, but this is mainly geared toward lower tier players who haven't learned all that really in-depth mechanics yet. So, knowing that, if you have any questions, let me know. If there's any other things you want me to go over, let me know. And I will see you guys in my next video.